Back again to my podcast, Steve Asali's Study, and this is going to be shared on the Woodbury House YouTube and the different platforms. So I've got another Zoom interview. We're keeping it very art focused. I have Harif Guzman in Miami, I believe. Thank you for your time then, brother. Been a long time coming. I've been on your case for a little while now, and I know this is going to be a very interesting talk. So I'll start from the beginning then. So obviously doing a bit of research and obviously getting to know you a little bit over the last few years. I know you're originally from Venezuela and then you moved over to New York. Around about 5 years of age?
Yep.
I know your dad was in the print.
Puerto Rico and then New York.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, just out of curiosity, how come your family moved over to New York?
It was a bad divorce situation. That kind of just took me to New York with one sister. The other sister stayed with my mom. It's kind of like a bit hectic, but yeah, my dad always had a vision to come to America, I guess. Trying to escape my mom or some drama there in the family. But yeah, I wound up in New York around 5 years of age, and that was my start in America.
Yeah. So, so you got to America roughly about 1980?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. As you well know, getting to know us at Woodbury House, I mean, we focus on the street art sector, predominantly Richard Hambleton, and I've always been intrigued. I really, not wishing that I was older, but it would have been really interesting to be around the streets of New York back in that sort of time period. You're someone who lived and breathed it and grew up there, and obviously, you've got a lot of let's say experiences in New York. What was it like back then? Was it as certain parts? Was it as bad or as let's say chaotic as maybe the media made out?
I'd say it was like in a big Renaissance period because there's a lot of artists there. So at a young age, it left a really strong impact on my life. A lot of painted trains, a lot of flavor on the streets. It was a bit dangerous at that age. I couldn't be out on the street too much. I was mostly with my dad, at a young age, working in a print shop. My dad had a print shop with a Puerto Rican guy on Hudson Street, 200 Hudson. Most of my time was spent, going to military stores. I was into that when I was little, riding my bike and working in the print shop mostly. I was always working in the print shop, man. I was always in my dad's work.
Yeah. And So like for you then, Harif, I know a lot of people like to get into like the arts, whether that's fashion, whether that's music, or whether that's painting, but it's a bloody hard profession to become a real, an icon in. So how come you kind of decided to go down that route?
I didn't really decide what I'm doing. It was kind of by default. I think skateboarding led me to everything. I left New York in '88 to go to Fort Lauderdale. My dad moved to Fort Lauderdale. That's my stepmother. My real mother stayed 20 minutes outside of New York at the time. I don't think New York was a desirable place to live during that time.
Yeah.
Kind of like sketchy and dangerous. I think most people were heading towards Long Island, Staten Island, or New Jersey to escape downtown New York.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went down to Fort Lauderdale. Kind of rough down there. Not really like a good, not really like a home base there or home life wasn't that good. But then I wound up going to California. Skating, working in restaurants, warehouse manager, driving a forklift, whatnot, DJing reggae. Then I started painting in San Francisco around '97. Right. I saw a couple pals that were doing it and doing art shows, and I was like, oh, I had a hurt ankle from skating, and I kind of gave it a go. I just started painting my house with these sponges, and then I kind of like didn't stop. Broke up with this girl in San Francisco, wound up going to LA. I had it with California. I was out there for like 4 years in the SF and a couple more years down in SoCal. But then I came down to LA and then traveled across the country with these truckers. My mom was the pastor of the church and we had these truckers. They were like, my mom was like, oh, they can pick you up and all your art and your records and your stuff in Santa Monica. I was living with Brian Childers, rest in peace. Professional skater, really smart guy, passed away a couple of years ago. And then I wound up trying to move back east to be close to my mom. I'd never really been back home or anything like that. But then when I got back east, My mom sold the house. She was kind of fighting with my stepdad a bit. Then she took off to stay at her girlfriend's. My dad, my stepdad took off to be at his parents' house who were sick at the time. And I wound up on the streets of New York, kind of homeless. And this kind of led to me painting on the streets. I had nowhere to paint, so I was like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna paint on the streets." And then that was the start of that street art career. I never really planned to like, "Oh, I'm gonna go be a street artist," or "I'm gonna be a fashion guy," or anything like that.
Yeah. Do you know what? Funny you should say. So I interviewed a guy that you probably know, a guy called Maximilian Cooper, who owns the Gumball Rally. And obviously he's a very, very successful chap. He said like the thing that kind of took him into that world was the BMX skate culture. And it was quite weird for when I started, researching him, I didn't think he was going to come out with that kind of answer. And what he said is the demographics, the groups of people, they really overlap during that, sort of the skate BMX sort of culture. So I totally resonate with what you're saying. So like, you go from like the streets of, let's say, New York or wherever you are, and obviously you do murals and that kind of stuff, which is almost like an advertisement board, to then set you up to like commercialize yourself if you want to. How do you make that transition from like the streets then to going into shows and into collaborations and stuff?
It's a bunch of different things. So basically, it's the survival tactics in New York. But the main transition, I think, would be, not just the transition itself, but also I had a name in skateboarding. And in skateboarding, you kind of learn to just go for it. You can't worry about looking stupid, or if not, you'll never get good at it, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of mentality, that kind of work ethic that my dad had taught me, along with the skateboarding. And then when I painted, I was just painting all the streets. Because I know, the most prolific graffiti writers are homeless or crashing on people's couches and stuff.
Yeah.
So then I think what helped me cross over was, I guess at one point I had covered so much of the streets, and then at the time Diesel was really big, and these two cats that worked there were hooking me up with jeans. So I would go there to get free jeans every once in a while, and one time I went in there to get free jeans. The owners of Diesel's, Renzo's sons were there, Stefano and Audro, and they would really like my stuff. They introduced me. They said, they welcomed me to do a show there at the Diesel store and to do a T-shirt for 55 DSL. And that was kind of like my big break. I did it, made some cash, and that was my start into that world. I had already made like some bootleg T-shirts. I started silk screen my own stuff, kind of like really bad, but kind of funny. I had this guy, Joe Dorsey's silk screen shop that he did with Fred Gold, pro skater in Jersey, Carteret. So that was kind of like my start into that whole world. And I never thought like, oh, I'm going to brand this and that. It was just more like, oh, cool, I'm going to make some silk screens, learn this trade. It was kind of like printing. My dad taught me printing, which was like offset printing presses, screen, plate making, stuff like that. So it was kind of like interesting to me. And I really liked the whole idea of silk screen. So that was kind of like my first start with the Diesel, with the 55 DSO guys. And that introduced me into that world, which later led to people from Volcom reaching out to me, and then the rest is history. Burton or this or that.
Yeah,
but I branded a character. It's called Hacula. First it was Ha, but then it was Hacula. So I started doing this character all over. So that was the beginning of that branding. And then when you're young, I feel like you're just doing things to pay the bills or pay for bills, pay your rent. And then you're not really aware of this at a young age, but the things that you do at that young age kind of paved the way for the rest of your career.
So I was going to come on to this actually later on. So I remember when you were here, when we had, some of your works here on display, you gave me the reasoning, but like you got obviously two sides to you. You've got the Harif Guzman, then you got the Hacula, and they're kind of slightly two different versions of your work. So What are they, just for the benefit of this conversation?
Oh, at an early age, even early on, I would always watch documentaries and stuff. And I thought one of the most saddest stories was the Houston story, right?
Right.
Houston was this great designer. And Tom Ford took his image later and ran with it. But Houston was this guy who created this whole empire, but sold his name. So then at the end, he didn't own rights to his own name, which is the most depressing thing. And then they took a whole era of his fashion shows and everything. He was in a quarrel with the people that owned his name. He deleted all his fashion videos, sold all his shit. I thought that was really sad. So that, along with Cool Keith, I always liked the way Cool Keith ran his shit. He had Dr. Octagon, Sir Menolith, different aliases to get around contracts. Now we thought, well, at one point, Harif Guzman, you never want to sell that name. So then I branded out Hacula with my alter ego. That was one alias. Then I did the Solo Arts Club, Delancey. I started different things for different situations and purposes. And to this day, I still stay true to that. I branded out now the Solo Arts Club in New York, which I started. Delancey was another clothing line I had. Hacula is another clothing line. And then Harif Guzman is my fine art name. So say if you want to do something commercial that makes sense, I would be like, yeah, use Hacula for that, or Hacula is the top art. But Harif Guzman is always going to be mine.
What's Hacula mean? How come you come up with that?
Well, I used to write Ha on the wall because my name's Harif, and it's H-A, right?
Yeah.
So they call me Ha. And that's kind of depressed a little bit. You're young, kind of going through a little heartache maybe. And so my friends would kind of invite me to these free drinks, whatever. Harold Hunter was, big influence on my life, major influence in New York, number one influence. And Chad Muska. And so, Chad was doing real well off at the time. Chad Muska was doing really well. So, me having $5 in my pocket, Chad would come along in town and next thing you know, we're at Serafina or a nice restaurant, and he'd be with Mary Kate and Ashley and Kirsten Dunst, all these big celebrity chicks with him. So it was born of frustration kind of because I would see this world that I wanted to enjoy, eating nice dinners, beautiful women, and then having access to it for a couple hours, but then not having the confidence inside, bred this kind of frustrating, brought out this frustration inside of me. And then my friend Harold would call me Ha, and they would make fun of me sometimes. They call me Wander because I'd wander off by myself and draw or something if I was doing it. And sometimes I would hang out and have a good time. But so then I was in love with the Bram Stoker's Dracula movie. I just come out of a relationship in San Francisco. I was real heartbroken there. So they would call me Ha, yo Ha, and they'd be like, yo Hacula, you're so dark. You're a dark motherfucker. Like, what is it? And they would make fun of me. And I think at that time I was like, oh, it's like, I'll take Hacula over Wanda. I didn't like Wanda. So I took the nickname Hacula, and then I started writing Hacula on the street. And that's where that came from.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
I was really into the luckiest man on earth is the man who finds true love kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. So I think before I got to know you, I'm pretty good friends with the owners of Trapstar, Mikey, Will, and Lee. Yeah. And I remember, great guys. Got great work ethic, great brand, and they're definitely going. Well, they've been places, and they're certainly going to go to other heights. But I remember seeing a collab with you or Hacula, I think it was, and it was in Selfridges in London, and I was thinking, this is proper cool. And when I've been doing my own research, I've actually seen that you've actually done other collabs with people like Ralph Lauren and people like that. So talk to me about that. Like, obviously, your art is one thing, but then crossing over into different kind of demographic genres and things. How's that play a part?
That plays about by drive. I feel like I'm not really the most talented dude that went to art school or this or that.
Yeah.
But I think one thing I do have in my career is that a lot of people don't have that really talented is drive. I've always had a lot of drive in my life. And I think, coming from the project, struggling here and there, Mint and Surf were these great graffiti artists, regular artists, not just graffiti artists, I want to say that. They started kind of a loft that was sponsored kind of by Red Bull, and 1184, I think it was called. It was on 343 Canal. So I went over there for a show, and they wanted to give me a show. And the guy who had rented them the loft lived upstairs, and he was moving out. And at that time, I was doing a little bit of Volcom stuff, some art stuff. Volcom had given me a lot of position. Those guys over there really helped out by allowing me to travel to Australia, Japan, giving me ads in Vice magazine for Hacula. And so I kind of took a jump, and I had a meeting with the guy, and he's like, "Yo, can you come up with this money?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I got it." I shook on the deal, and then I went downstairs. I remember my boy George. I was like, "Yo, can I borrow $5 for you? I got to figure out this plan." So I had a little check coming, but I kind of put this deal together to get this loft, and I kind of, in New York, you learn how to kind of deal things out, work things out, right? So you have to realize, hey, I'm not good at this, but I can put this together. I can offer this guy a couple of parties. I can offer this guy a couple of dinner parties. And I somehow managed the deal, worked my way in, got the money. And then once I was in, it was like, okay, how am I going to pay for this shit? So then I started a photo studio called Whiplash Studios. And I would hide all my stuff. I made this corner little box thing where there's a little office on top, and the bottom was like these doors that roll out. And I would hide all my bed, mattress, all my living stuff in there. When I would rent it out as a photo studio, which later came to be such a great thing because I was working with photographers like Kareem Black, Angela Boatwright. I didn't know too much about the whole industry, but I knew that this person worked at K&M Rentals. This person was a stylist. This person was a photographer. So I kind of learned how to put people that were good at what they did and kind of connect to them and somehow attach myself to that and learn a little bit of all those trades. I was doing at the time freelance work, say set design for Mary Howard, so I needed money. So my friend Joe Bulli hooked it up. Next thing you know, that led to the cover of Italian Vogue with Steve Meisel.
Yeah,
28 pages.
cool.
So work is a place where if you have that drive and you go for it and you're not afraid to take chances and work and you work hard, it pays off. You know what I mean? And those things led to the cover of Italian Vogue or the polo thing where people that rented out my studio, they saw that I was working there, they saw the art there, and then they said, "Harif, you want to do this collaboration? It's interesting what you're doing."
Yeah.
Then from that being going on, led to other great things, for whether it was just being the guy downtown, Nike rented out my loft, the whole Nike team stayed there, they built a mini ramp in my house, and then I was that dude with the mini ramp in my house and taking photos. Skateboarding pretty much led to everything. Eventually that crossed over into other realms, which was, being a stylist assistant for this person or different aspects, just, trying to make money, but at the same time, working with the best people,
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're doing that. Of course, we all want to make money, but it's also about, building a legacy and building a brand for yourself. And I was going to get onto this next part. I mean, what I've grown to notice with you, in person or even just watching you on social media is, mate, you don't stop. You work and I never know where you're going to be. Like you're either New York or different parts of America, or you're in Russia. And yeah, I mean, the thing that I definitely always credit you for is, no matter what anyone ever would say, is you fucking work super, super hard. And I think like you just said there, it's almost like you've got no fear. You'll go into certain different scenarios and just attack it head first. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, move on to the next. How important is that? That sort of work ethic in your line of work.
I think it's important in every area, but I think it's something that I took from skateboarding. If you're on the ramp and you never drop in and never eat shit, you're never gonna get good. You're just fucking scared. And I think you can't be scared to fail. I failed at a million things.
Yeah.
For me, I just keep going. I think it's a something that comes from within each individual. Some people have it, some people don't. I'm not really focused on what everyone else is doing. I kind of just stay in my own lane. Kind of like those race horses with the blinders. I just do what I have to do. I know what I'm gonna do. I don't really compare myself to other people or oh, well, this person's doing this. I don't really care what everyone else is doing, what everyone else thinks I have to be. I think you have to be happy where you're at in your own life, And you can't compare yourself to what this person, because everyone has a different destiny in life and a different purpose.
Yeah. I think you're one of the people as well that is very, very fortunate because you've created your own fortune, which is obviously you're making money from what you do. You've had some great collaborations, but more importantly, you're traveling the world. And I personally think the definition of being successful isn't just about one thing, whether it's money or whatever else. I think definitely part of it, though, is experiencing different demographics, different cultures in different part of the world. And I know you've traveled to many places. And going on to like Russia then, because your piece now or your artwork is in the MoMA over there, is that right?
Yeah, one of my collections. I have a show coming next month at the MoMA in Moscow. It was originally supposed to be October 4th, but there's pandemic, and all that, so it got moved to March 29th. So it'll be my first solo retrospect, like 25 years of my work. From skateboarding, photography, sculptures, you name it, photography, skate videos, art videos, they're all going to be shown there at the MoMA.
I mean, that's a pretty big deal for people that don't know. It's Museum of Modern Art, and obviously you got the one in New York, and then you got one there. How did that come about?
Oh man, that's a crazy one. Originally, I was supposed to do something. I met somebody, and I was supposed to do something at the Museum of Modern Art in Argentina. I was in Tulum doing art with me. This person kind of turned to a flake. Long story short, I didn't want to go home. I kind of had manifested that I would want that to the universe. Found myself in a weird position. Came to Miami. Still, the guy was like, "Yeah, we're going to go down and do this deal with the sculpture, blah, blah." Kind of didn't work out. Complete bullshit. And then I had a show coming up in Rome, and those guys reached out to me and were like, "Why don't you come to Rome and make all the paintings for the show early?" I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to go home. It's not time to go home. I have to set out what I meant to do." Went out to Rome. Was there for a month painting for the show, kind of like still like, fuck, what am I going to do? I told myself I was going to do the show in Argentina. Didn't work out. A friend of mine reached out to me, Boris, was like, "Hey, come to Moscow for the World Cup. I want you to do a T-shirt for us. And I want you to speak to people in Moscow." He said, "Fly out to Ibiza. Meet my friends, and we'll go there." So I flew out to Ibiza after Rome. This is like after 5 months of not being home, right? And kind of was just going through a weird time in my life. I was like, I gotta make this happen. I told myself I would do this, and I'm gonna manifest or something. So I went out to Ibiza, had a meeting with this guy's dad, really powerful Russian dude. That was intense. When I landed and met him, and then we became friendly after that. And then somehow got this visa. They gave me a visa to Russia like a week and a half later, and then found myself in Moscow for the World Cup. And then we were doing this party event. This person, Pasha, who sold my clothes, who had come to my studio in New York, reached out to me and was, "Hey, we know you're in town. You got some fans here that really love your artwork. They would love to meet you." They came pick me up, and then they took me to this video shoot. It was Igor Krivas doing the video with Philip Kernikoff. Philip Kernikoff is like the Elton John of Moscow. He had all my clothes on his back. He was a big fan of my clothes, and then they introduced me to Timothy, who loved my art too, or like my stuff. And then I was like, wow, there's this whole base of people that really dig my stuff here. Didn't think much of it. Went back to the gig where they had the event. Another friend was throwing a big party. Next day, the event was there. Those guys picked me up again. Pasha picked me up again. He was like, before the event, would you like to come to this thing? And then he showed me that idea of this mall that they were doing called Artrium, the world's first mall ever covered in street art. He said, "Hey, would you like to do a wall here? We'd love to have you. We'll give you this X amount, or tell us how much you would charge to do a mural." I was like, wow, that could be cool. At this time I was staying at Boris's house. So yeah, I said, yeah, that's cool. I'd love to meet the guy, Eric, who owns the mall, and young cat Russian that was raised in Boston. All these people that came from these families were raised in the USA, whether it's New York, LA, or Boston, right?
Yeah.
So I went to the event. Party went on. It was cool. I left early. These guys left a little late. They got caught in some trouble went on. Long story short, the people where I was staying, everyone had to leave. Some situation occurred with some things that they got involved in or whatever. And then I was like, what the hell am I going to do? I'm in Moscow. Pasha called and was like, hey, do you want to have this meeting? I said, look, I'm down to do it. They're like, we have a suite for you. Would you be interested in doing this? I said, when can the car pick me up? They said, when do you need it? I was like, how about in 30 minutes? And then I was out of there, took the meeting with these guys at a banya. Deal went through. They liked me. Some of the people that were there were New Yorkers, directors that knew my best friend, Harif Guzman. Everything always connects, right, when you're working. And so, long story short, when I was coming into Moscow, I forgot to mention I saw these big sculptures that later I learned were Surab Tesarelli. And at the time, I'm still getting involved in these big sculptures I'm making right now. That's my next step. And kind of always ask the universe, like, oh man, I need to meet whoever did that, man. Universe, like, look at these big 60 meters steel sculptures, like what? So I put that out there, and then Pasha was like, oh, I want to introduce you to some of the museum people later that week. So I went to the MoMA. He's like, I want to introduce you to the director. Walk around with your translator. Walk around the museum with your translator. And I walked around and I was like, wow, this is taking forever. Like, where's this guy? Finally, they come out and I meet Vasily, the director, and I go into their office and they're like, oh, we've been talking about street art. Really like what you do, et cetera, et cetera. And then he's like, let me walk around the museum. And I was walking around the museum and I noticed those sculptures that were in the same style or manner that the ones I saw driving in. And I asked the director, I was like, who is this sculptor? Oh, that's my grandfather. I was like, oh, man, that's your grandfather. I was like, that's amazing how he makes this. And I started talking. And he was raised in New York City. Him and his brothers who have. He's like, would you like to see my grandfather's museum? It's right down the street. We took a ride down there. It's amazing. I was even more amazed at these huge sculptures, really intricate, the castings on them, etc. Then he's like, actually, you know what? I'm about to go have dinner with my grandfather right now. You're interested in coming meet him. Next thing you know, I'm in the dude's house. He's like, this guy's a legend. Huge sculptures in his house. I'm having dinner with this guy. And, he kind of has jewelry going, the big rings. I'm drawing, I always carry my little thing. I started drawing at the table. He started drawing. We exchanged drawings. There was a good one before that. Then the grandson came in, and he kind of knew who I was from New York, from Russ. This guy started this brand, SSUR. Everything started kind of tying together. We had a great conversation. Left, and then he said, you know what? I like this portrait. So the whole time I'm painting, right? Making portraits or whatever. He said, I would really like to maybe do something with the museum with you. Later on the line, he came to the studio where I was working at the mall. There was like the studio they gave me. He liked this portrait. Like, oh, we'd like to acquire one of these for a MoMA for our collection. I said, cool. Wound up painting in Moscow, meeting a lot of people, doing a lot of stuff. And then as I was leaving, they're like, yeah, would you be interested in maybe doing a show at the MoMA? I said, wow, cool. I mean, it wasn't set in stone. They're like, okay, it's a conversation we can have. And then, 2 years later, boom, I had to wait. I got the notification. I went down. It was supposed to be October 4th. Then COVID happened. Now I got moved to March 9th. And here I am. That's how it started.
That's a wicked story. Do you know what was? Do you know what's beautiful about some of your language? Right, you use the words manifest, attract, that kind of stuff. And I'm not from the art market. Yeah, I just found myself by chance getting into it. I'm actually a salesperson. When people say to me, "What do you do?" When you strip it all away, I'm in sales, and I've always been taught when I got into sales when I was about 19, 20 years of age, you need to attract the very, very best results. You need to manifest the best people into your life. And you're going to do that by thinking a certain way, talking a certain way, and acting a certain way. And what's great to see from you, I mean, you know, I think you've probably got 10 years on me. I'm 35. You're still talking like that, and you're actually making shit happen. And I just really admire it. I just love the language. So like, I know you've worked with some other great artists as well. One of my favorites is Retna. What do you think? I mean, obviously you like his work. What's he like to work with?
There's two sides of Retna, right? I'd rather just focus on the good side
Of course.
of him. He's a smart guy. He's really knowledgeable. He remembers everything. Remembers people's names, what they do, their position. He has great strategy. As far as working with him, there's two sides of him, and I think now he's in a better place. He's getting help a little bit. I think he had no problem with the alcohol and different things that came out. But I mean, everyone that has to struggle with different things in life. It can be difficult at times, but I think everyone that's still artist can be difficult. That's really passionate about their art. He's really passionate about his stuff, and you know, everyone has different situations, scenarios that pay about who they are in their life. I think he's really great at what he does. I don't really judge anyone on their personal life. That has nothing to do with their work, you know, for me. That being said, I think he's a great artist, and I think he's amazing, man. What he's been able to create. We both have the situation with our parents. Both our dads died on the same time. We both have to take care of our family. There's a lot of pressure there, and we both come from nothing. So I think that being said, I think we have a lot of similarities. He's like my little brother. Our birthdays are a day apart. He's just been under different turmoil and situations, and I deal with things differently. That's all.
Yeah.
But besides that, I think.
Well, because I know obviously you've worked with him, and the reason why I know that is obviously looking at your website and seeing all your exhibitions. And again, testament to your work rate. I mean, I didn't realise how many bloody exhibitions you've done over the years. It's you know, hats off to you. I know I've seen you been posted before, and he's also done it back to you, Alec Monopoly. He's a completely different kind of, you know, style. What I'm trying to get to as well is, unlike the people that we represent, or let's say the person we represent, which is someone like Hambleton, back in the 80s and even the 90s, there was no such thing as social media. There was no such thing as the internet. But now that we live in a world where there's social media and the internet, it gives a lot of people a platform to promote whatever they want to do. And people like Alec Monopoly, I've seen his Instagram account from a few years ago go from like 25,000 to like over 1 million. And do you think that now actually provides a lot more sort of foundations and leverage to get your work out there? Or could it be a bit of a distraction as well? And can it actually hinder you in some ways?
I think you have to decide, like any career, what you want to do with your career. What do you want out of your career? Whether you're a football player, baseball player, artist, whatever the hell it is. I think if you want to have wealth and just be rich and famous, those things have nothing to do with art, in my mind. But it's fine. If that's what you want, that's what you get. As far as people like Alex, he knew what he wanted at an early age. He wanted to be famous. He wanted to be rich. He turned into a monopoly man. That's what he wants. Hats off to him too. You know, I don't. One of my favorite quotes in the whole world is Michael Jackson. He said, "The great artist should never have to put another artist down." It's his life. If that's what makes him happy, that's what makes him happy. To me, I feel like everyone should do what they have to do. You know, everyone's here to learn their own lessons. To me, life's about clearing karma with your own instant family, healing you were born into your family for a reason, to help your parents with their karmic situation, and you being honest with yourself to what the hell's going on in your family, whether it's sexual abuse, hitting, violence. There's something going on in your family that you don't want to face, or you don't get along with your parents, but you were put here to clear that. And you were put here to help other people. And I think that's where the real wealth comes in life.
Yeah.
To me, yeah, it's great. You know, I like Lamborghinis. I like all these cars. I like money, but that's not really what I'm made of. I kind of got sidetracked for a bit there in life. In my 30s, you know, I had the Richard Mille, the supermodels, whatever. But, you know, I realized that wasn't really making me happy. That's me. Everyone else, they might like it. So I kind of changed my path a little bit. I realized some of my friends that they enjoy that maybe more than me. Maybe that's what they want. I love Alex. A lot of people are like, "Oh, why do you hang out with Alex?" I don't care what anyone says. I love the guy. He's a marketing genius. He did what he wanted to do. So I noticed he was young. He was there for me in some difficult times. I don't feel there's any reason to put anyone down or be like, oh, just because we're different doesn't mean like, oh, I can't hang out with him. I can do whatever the hell I want. And to me, he's always been a fair dude. He's been an extra sweet guy to me. Sometimes, just like any old pal, you slap each other in the face a little bit, and that's a real friendship. But I mean, everybody has to decide what they want to do with their career and what they want to have.
Yeah, that's definitely solid advice. And a bit like you. I mean, look, I've only ever met him once when I was in LA through Michael, and he was a really really nice guy, and I've got a lot of respect for him. But he's testament to the fact that, just like you, if you fucking work really, really hard, which you both clearly do, I can see you're always traveling the world and doing collaborations, you're going to manifest the best results into your life. And he's definitely leveraged the whole Instagram, social media side of things. And whether that's people's taste or not, the facts are he's become a success off the back end of it. And I even sort of saw or read or heard that he got a fairly big contract off the, with Tag because of the social media stuff, which is the watch brand.
Brandon's a hustler. You have to understand, both those guys were kind of mentored by Scott Disick, who's a beast. Scott Disick's a little genius, and then Scott Disick knew what he wanted at an early age. Trading this, let me trade this car for this chain or this chain for that. Always would figure out a way to get something for a great deal or a great price, or saw the chess game in it, And Scott Disick was like the one who taught those guys that.
Yeah,
he's the one who meant. Now, like I saw that, at an early age, their situation, it'd be like, oh, I traded this painting and a dirt bike or this for this chain, and then from the chain I traded that for this, and the painting and the G-Wagon that was used, and then blah, blah, blah. It was always like some sort of like sick ass situation where they hustled their way into that, and then, almost like use that as leverage to get up in there and climb their way up this way.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, wicked to see. So
smart dude.
So a young boxer would have inspirations to become like a Mike Tyson or like a Muhammad Ali, for example. Or if you was in a singer, you would want to be someone like Michael Jackson or someone like that. And if you're an artist, especially from New York or a street artist, the same old names normally come up who inspire them. The Jean-Michel Basquiat's, the Keith Harings, maybe even people before them like Andy Warhol. Hamilton's obviously thrown in the mix. I spoke to Cope too over my podcast last week, and he said that Ramosi was someone that really inspired him. So the question I want to ask you is, who quite naturally inspired you? Who do you look up to?
I kind of looked up to Robert Evans, the producer. I kind of looked up to Stanley Kubrick. The people that inspire me are a little different. I kind of liked a lot of the punk rock movement, Gorilla Biscuits, Token Entry, a lot of those guys in those bands. My father was a big inspiration, my mother, because he taught me that work ethic, and my mother was always making dresses for my sisters, the fashion sense. I think they had they had really great style, or they do still. My mom's still alive. I think I was more inspired by a movement that I saw in New York when I was young, which was like the whole graffiti movement, or just that vibe of like the painted trains. I remember seeing that going out of the World Trade Center all the time. The power of the city more than an actual person. But yeah, the people that really inspired me were like, I think Mark Gonzalez in the skate world. This guy Dixie, Michael Cox, who was a little artist. I never really took it to that level, but I remember I'd watch him draw.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the photography aspect of it too. Was a big inspiration. Different photographers during this time. Not really specifically. I like Basquiat. I like the movement what they stood for. Basquiat, Haring. I like the movement that they were anti-establishment, like punk. During this time, I feel like artists had complete control over the collectors. And would, if you said anything to Haring or any of these dudes, they would throw paint on you or food at you. They kick you out of their studio.
Yeah.
And now I feel all these painters are the world. There's so much money in it that painters kind of are bending down backwards for collectors. Like, okay, we'll paint what you want. We'll do what you want. They've tamed like the artists. They've tamed these artists to kind of do whatever they're told just because there's so much money involved, which is quite sad.
It's a bit like selling out a little bit,
I don't know if it's selling out. I think it just has something to do with the sign of the times, I guess. I don't know. I just feel it's weird. You have smart friends, and then they're at dinner and you're like, oh, these are my collectors. I'm going to keep them over here. It's almost like they feel like, oh, if they buy my stuff and they buy yours, they're not going to run out of money. I don't understand what it is, but there's like this jealousy or weird greed among some people. Like, oh, these are my collectors. I want to introduce them to you, or people trying to keep each other. I guess that was always around, but I felt like the dudes in the 80s had a cooler clique. It seemed like it was more of a complete package as an artist. I think there's two different types of artists, kind of artist that lives in New Hampshire and does little cutouts and studies the scene and reads up on it. And then there's people like Keith Haring or Basquiat, or that were in the scene, living it, and then portraying their image of it onto the canvas. And I feel like that's more what I relate to, because you're living it, you're in it, and you're putting back into the scene. You're not just like, oh, well, I made it, so now I'm going to move upstate into the woods. And I feel like New York was abandoned during this time. Kind of like everyone that made it in the art world kind of left upstate, went sober, didn't hang out. And I think that's part of the reason that the scene downtown New York died. All the people was dying because all the rich people moved in, all the talent had to move out because they couldn't afford it. And that led to this whole situation that to get back to the point is like the money became too much, and they kind of dried out the paint. You know what I mean?
Yeah. On the note of like Keith Haring, Jean-Michel Basquiat, I mean, if I'm doing my maths right, I mean, you would have been quite a young lad, when they were alive, but then obviously, they passed away prematurely due to multiple different things. But I think I remember speaking to you once that you either met Hambleton or you should see him riding around in the streets on his bike and stuff like that.
Get out of New York, you die.
Sorry?
You don't get out of New York City, you die. Killed all those guys that never got out.
Right, okay.
Francesco got out, Schnabel got out. If you get out, you live. You have to learn how to fucking maneuver in the shit. It's a world of shit and psychological fucking anguish. And if you don't have fun and escape, it kills you. New York City killed my best friend. Killed Basquiat, killed Haring, killed Dondi, killed everyone because you have to find a way to maneuver and navigate through this world of shit.
And did you ever meet Hambleton, Harif? Because obviously he lived. You did?
He was a really good friend of Mike from the shop. And I would see him around, and it was quite interesting. I really loved his work, but it was quite sad, because his face was getting eaten up, and he had the glasses, and I was just like, wow, man, that's something crazy. I just remember hearing different things and seeing him. He was a great dude, but it was really tough to see anyone, not even just him. I mean, a lot of the junkies when I lived in San Francisco, like, you meet these girls, and they come into the city, and they kind of start hookering, prostituting, and then you see them, they're like healthy looking, and you see their face start to chip off from the drugs, and you get to see them beat up, and then sometimes they just go missing, and you're like, wow, what happened to that? And I kind of felt like with him, he was so talented, and he was jumping off this off to this off, and kind of doing his thing, and then eventually, you knew it was coming, right? And I feel like everyone in the industry kind of knew it was coming, and it's almost like they knew it was coming with Basquiat too, and they kind of just killed him.
Yeah.
Himself, but understand these things kill you. I mean, look at Ricky Powell, just passed away too. I think if you don't get out, it can fuck you up, man. You make certain personal decisions too, but it was really tough to see that. I really liked his stuff, but it was tough to see the environment he was in and how far he was in his addiction game,
It's part of like, I guess in like, I know if you look at, music artists from any of the greats like George Michael or Amy Winehouse, or I know the list is endless. Any of them that have had pain in their life, whether that was self-inflicted or whether that was circumstances, etc. That is actually why they're great, because you can feel the pain, you can feel the natural kind of authenticness in their voice or in their painting or in anything they're doing. That's one of the reasons why people get attracted to their works, Harif. Is that something that would you would support what I'm saying now?
I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think that's a big lie. I think there's a lot of pain. I mean, Stanley Kubrick didn't die of an OD.
No, what I'm saying though is people buy into their work because they feel.
I think that's not having guidance.
What's that?
I think that's not having the proper guidance. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, guidance, you said. Okay, fine, fair enough.
I think, there's a difference between Mary-Kate and Ashley and Lindsay Lohan, right?
Right.
Great parents, more support there. Look at Jake Hoffman, Dustin Hoffman's son. Great support family system, great family guidance. It doesn't have to mean just because you're talented and you feel things. You're right. There is a struggle that comes from being self-made that I think a lot of people envy. Because you feel everything more, right?
Yeah.
But just how low, how high you go.
Yeah.
If you're born into, you have 30 houses, you don't even know the pleasure of owning your first house.
Yeah.
Born in a situation where your dad has 800 cars in collection, what the fuck do you care about one car? You don't feel anything. Great. You're like, oh, we bought another car. It's like, there's no feeling.
Yeah.
Or, oh, we bought another house in Paris. It's not like your levels, your gauges are different,
Yeah.
There is a lot more being said to people that are self-made and feel that suffering. But that doesn't change the fact or make me better than anyone else. It's just, hopelessness is hopelessness. Doesn't matter if you have $1 billion or $1. That feeling is still the same.
Yeah, of course. I think
more of money. It's weird. I think people that have less kind of are more happy than people that have more.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to get at is like when like I said earlier, I'm not from the art market per se. I sort of found myself in it, and part of the reason why I was drawn to the Hamilton thing is because I liked his works and they were cool, but I think my taste was shaped by my education. And when I started learning about Basquiat, Haring, and his predecessors, I was like, wow, like back then it seemed a bit crazy. And it, especially with Hamilton being quite elusive. And that's what kind of drew me to it. And then like I read something completely different, not completely different subject, but something quite similar. Adele, you obviously know the singer Adele. Apparently, like when she split up with her boyfriend or something, she was writing songs and singing songs when she was with him, and it wasn't coming out the same. And the moment she broke up, she had all this pain in her voice. And sometimes that emotion comes across in your art, and therefore it catches, people start liking it a lot more. So I guess, like artists from New York, they have this kind of edgy kind of, do whatever it takes mentality, but also like kind of like sometimes, sometimes checkered background or sometimes like controversial stuff. And I think that's what makes it interesting.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It is. There's something to be said about that,
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, right? Because this is like kind of strange times for every industry. You mentioned COVID. Our business over here has actually thrived because of COVID, because stocks, ISIS bonds, bank-based investments are dropping, and there's clearly people moving into the contemporary art sector even more to stockpile work to preserve their money and also to make money. I very much know that your fine art sector has been going up as well. I spoke to Cope too, and he said he was worried at the start of COVID because he thought I had all these shows to do and everything else, and it all got cancelled. And then he started getting very professional type people like accountants, doctors, etc., calling them up out the blue and saying, "I want to buy your work." Are you finding the same thing?
Yeah, it's a lux market, man. I'm in a lux market, and people that had $500 million now have $4 billion.
Yeah.
Brainer, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm pushing I think it's really hard to establish yourself maybe right now, but I'm already established. So yeah, I'm pretty lucky, fortunate that way.
And you're getting a lot more new collectors, would you say, look, I want to buy your work for different reasons?
Things going even better than before.
That's amazing, wicked. Good to hear that. Where, like, just in a short answer then, I mean, where do you see your own market going over the next 5, 10, 15 years, Harif? What's your aspirations?
Man, I live for that. I know my own value. I know what I do is unique. And I feel like there's no one really doing what I'm doing. As far as fashion-wise, I've created my own character. To brand that was really difficult and still being branded. Instead of attaching myself to other characters, you know? Like, I'm not putting other artists down, but if other artists attach themselves to something that's been created already, that's kind of easier, right? I kind of been in my own lane. As far as coming from New York, I feel like if I carved my name into the rocks with my fucking own sword, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, sorry, I had another face on that. And that was really difficult. So I said, I don't really compare myself to anyone. I know what I want to do with my career. I see it going in a really good direction. I think this MoMA show is going to be really good. Let people know what I've done. I said I've never been good at archiving stuff or that organization part. I think this is going to let people know exactly what I've done. I don't remember half the things I've done. I think this was the start of a new museum thing. I plan on doing a lot more museum shows. And my whole thing has been I'm more into the academic side of my art. I want to leave a legacy of museums, academic, and move into big public outdoor art sculptures, you know? $15 million project, huge project. I want to get more into architecture and things like that.
Amazing stuff. Well, look, like I said earlier, you work far too hard to not become a success, you know? The writing's on the wall for me, so fair play to you, mate.
Well, you're a success, you know? I don't think success has anything to do with what you've done or money. It has to do with a vibe, and like I said, it has to do with the way you treat other people. That makes you successful.
Definitely.
Kind.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with money or what you've done or achieved. It has to do with the way you carry yourself every day.
Yeah, it's I heard a saying once, which I try and stick by: what you put out to the world, you're going to get back. So if you're a rich arsehole, you're going to just attract more them kind of certain people. But if you're someone that's positive, upbeat, you want to help everybody else and give value to the world, you're going to get that back one way, shape, or form. Yeah.
Sure.
Harif, where can people find you if you want them to find you on Instagram and Facebook, I guess?
On my name on Instagram. That's pretty much it. My email. That's it, man. Pretty basic. Right to it. Yeah.
Cool. And this is the last question. So my kind of catchphrase, my saying is: be happy, never content. I've got my own interpretation of that, which I try and stick by. What would you say your own interpretation of be happy, never content is, Harif?
I think just real simple, love yourself.
That's it.
You know, be patient and love, man. That's it. Be patient and love yourself. I don't know. That's pretty much like, it changes from time to time, right? So I think it's a balance. That's what I tell myself right now. Just be patient, learn to sit, stop running around after things, stay focused on what you have to do, and everything will come, let everything come to you, and meditate on that.
Lovely. Harif, thank you for your time, mate. I really, really appreciate it. And, you know, I've got a massive respect for you. And when you're back in London, definitely want to hook up, come over to the studio. God bless, mate.
All right, man. Peace out.
Nice one. Yeah. Have a good day. Take care.
You too.